welcome back, Crafty family. We are super excited to be joining you guys this Friday. We've got a treat for you, some really cleverly designed items for your sewing room. And we're joined here today with Stephanie from Wonderfil. So a round of applause. So happy to have her here with us. She's going to be taking us through some ins and outs. So in just a minute, we're going to hand the reins over to her. We got a couple of things to get out of the way before we get started today. Of course, I'm joined here in the studio by none other than Joe, our keyboard master and comment extraordinaire. So thank you again for joining us. He handles all of the behind the scenes stuff. I haven't been able to get him on screen yet, but maybe one of these days we'll be able to bring him on board. But as I mentioned, we've got a fun show for you guys today. There's some items in here. I love cleverly designed items, and when I saw some of these things that Wonderfil had, I had to bring them in. I really wanted to show them to you guys. This has actually been in the works for a couple of months now, but we are really excited to be bringing you guys this stuff today. But again, just a couple of things to get out of the way before we get started today. One of the things we offer on the SewForLess.com website is custom digitizing. If you guys haven't done this before, I invite you to try it out. Guys, I do want to say thank you too. There's been a lot of new activity on the design front, and I'm really thankful for you guys taking advantage of that. But that means one thing, that you guys are loving the new digitizing rates, guys. Like I said, we've seen a lot of designs come through. If you're an embroidery design business, one of the cool things about this is that you can go in meeting with your clients knowing exactly what it's going to cost you to get the design done, so you know exactly what you can charge them. Designs under 5 inches are just $10. I mean, 5 by 5. So that's basically all of your left chest, your hats, all that stuff. You guys know going in, it's going to cost you $10. So when you're going in and you're talking to your clients, you can confidently tell them exactly how much that design is going to cost you. So it's a great way to branch out if you don't offer custom designs right now. Again, guys, it's just a really neat service that we have on there. Make sure to check it out. Guys, you don't have to register to view the shows. If you're just here to check out the new stuff, sit back, relax. You're going to really love what you've got to see here. If you do want to purchase something, you do have to register on the SewForLess.com website. I think it's first name, last name, and email address, and a password. It's really super easy. That's all you got to do. But again, if you're just here to check out all the new stuff, no registration necessary. Just sit back and relax. But guys, that's really all I got. Joe, anything going on?
No. Big holiday weekend.
It is a big holiday weekend. Guys, I've kind of shortened this intro because really, I don't think the other stuff was necessary. And this way we can dive right in. Let's bring Stephanie back up here. There she is. I know you guys are really here to see her. So we're gonna hand the reins over to her, and let's check out all this new stuff. Stephanie, go. It's all you now. Uh-oh, did we freeze?
Oh, are we working?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Stephanie. I'm from Wonderfil Spreads. Thank you so much for joining in today to watch me talk about a few accessories and a few thread lines. They actually carry a lot of really unique thread lines that I'm really excited to dive in today and talk about. So without further ado, I'll go ahead. And of course, if anyone has any questions, I think Joe will keep an eye on the chat, and I will try to answer those questions as best as I can. So I'll just start about and give you some information about Wonderfil itself. So Wonderfil is a thread company, and we actually carry 36 thread lines, and we almost exclusively make threads. However, we actually do have a few other accessories as well in order to make the sewing experience a little bit better. So we have our 36 thread lines and a few unique accessories to just make your stitching show up better, to make your life a little bit easier when you're working with different types of specialty threads sometimes, or simply for if you're dealing with other issues while you're sewing on your sewing machine or embroidery machine, maybe some of these accessories can kind of help you out and make that whole process much smoother. So the first one I'll kind of go into is the thread tamer. So the thread tamer is our version of a thread stand. So let me just pull it back a bit so you can see the whole thing here. So you can see there's a few components here, so I'll just kind of remove them so you can see. When you do get a thread stand, there is just a small amount of assembly required, but really nothing too challenging. You'll notice first here that there's 3 spool pins. So this is actually where you're going to put the thread when you are using the stand. And then we have this other attachment, and this actually just slides on like that. So when you're having to use a smaller spool, like a cop size, this is what we call a cop size, you can actually put it on horizontally and put it through the slots at the top, and that'll actually help draw the thread so you're not adding any twist every time it comes off the spool. So I'm not sure if you guys can see there, but that's kind of how that works. And then this is the top accessory that kind of just goes right here. And as you can see, there are actually 4 holes right there. And I'll just do a small demonstration here. So this is our metallic thread. As many people probably know, metallic is sometimes not the easiest to work with. I would kind of put this in the same category as sometimes rayon threads. And that's not to say that they're unapproachable or as like a whole, they're just really hard to use. I would say it also depends on the quality, what the thread is made of. So for example, this metallic has a rayon core, but just the characteristics of metallic, it has a very good memory. So when we're talking about thread memory, you can actually see when I take it off the spool, you can see all these, oh, see, it's kind of unwinding because it is a slippery thread. I'm not sure if you can see there, but it actually is holding its shape like that. And when I compare it to something like a cotton thread, cotton's super easy to use because once it comes off the spool, it actually already relaxes itself. So in this case, you want to use threads that are either a little bit slippery or have a good memory like metallic and put them through a thread stand. So there's time for it to relax before it goes into your machine. Otherwise, we don't want to cause any extra unwanted twisting, gathering, or bunching. And a thread stand can also help prevent pooling at the bottom of your spool, which can also happen. So after you put it on one of these spool pins, you can actually see that it's twisting on itself a little bit if I give it some slack. So this is also another reason why a thread stand can be very helpful. So all you want to do is weave it through the holes back and forth like this. Okay, like this. So I just put it through 3, which should be enough. And then if you see that, it'll actually help relax the thread. And any part where it's kind of twisted up together, it will kind of untwist itself as it's going those slots and can feed into your machine much more evenly, and help avoid those issues when you're experiencing skip stitches or like broken thread, things like that. So this is the top part of the thread tamer and how you would use it essentially. Another function that this thread tamer has is, I'm not sure if you can see very well here, but there's actually 3 slots in the front. 1, 2, 3. So these ones are couching slots. I think it might be backwards when you're reading it, but this is designed so that when you're doing couching, when you're doing your couching technique, there's a good way to put the threads in without having a giant bowl of messy threads, or you're trying to unwind thread at the same time you're trying to couch. So here I'll just demonstrate again where I put the thread on one of the spools. I will hold it up in just one moment so everyone can see. Okay, so in this circumstance, it's through one of the slots there. And you can put up to 3 and couch 3 threads down with a couching foot or a cording foot, or even if you're using like a open toe applique foot and you're kind of doing like that zigzag, couching is a really, really fun technique to add some extra, decorations to your piece. So You can see here, it just unwinds very smoothly without that pooling that you have to worry about sometimes with these threads. And for this is Dazzle. It's actually a rayon and metallic thread, which makes it very slippery. If there's no like thread wrap on it, it kind of just all falls off like that. So it is really important to kind of consider these accessories to improve your sewing experience. You're not having to unwind this, untangle this, or if your thread is just like unspooling so quickly, you actually want to regulate the speed that it comes off so you're not experiencing any tension issues as well. So that's kind of the first device I would say that helps with thread delivery into your machine. The next one I want to touch on is our newest product, or our newest accessory that we've introduced, and it's been very popular among quilters and embroiderers alike. It's what we call our ultimate thread dispenser, and it's just this little tool here. So it comes in this box and it's actually available in 3 colors. We have it in blue, pink, and white. Here's the pink one here. And this serves a...
So I just wanted to jump in here real quick because we've got some excitement about that thread tamer here. And we had a couple of questions and I thought I'd just kind of bring them in here real quick. So Sci-Fi Helen on Facebook was asking, is one better for metallic? And I'm not sure exactly what she's kind of comparing because you just went through a whole explanation on how it does relax the thread. So I wanted to just kind of bring that up to her attention here real quickly because obviously, as you mentioned, metallic is one of the most challenging, along with the rayon for those different characteristics that you outlined. But I could definitely, I'm glad that you showed that because even though I carry the thread tamer, it's one of the tallest thread stands I've ever seen behind the machine. But I really think it's unique in that you've got those extra holes on the top. I've never seen that before. Now that works really well, huh?
Yeah, so we actually consciously tried to put some extra holes because, like I said, metallic has such good memory that if you pull out a long piece, it actually can start twisting up on itself before it even enters the machine. And so if there's just one slot for it to go through, the twist actually might still continue to hold as it goes
Right.
into your machine. Whereas while it's weaving through maybe 2 or 3 of those holes before it feeds into your machine, it'll actually help undo that twist and make it I guess a smoother thread while it's feeding. And I saw a quick comment as well that's where do you put this in comparison to your machine, right? And we generally put it behind the machine or a little bit to the right. And we have machines that are all different sizes, so you can of course definitely use any slot that you want while you're feeding these threads into your machine. I would say for threads that don't twist up on itself, you don't necessarily have to put it through all 4 holes before it goes into your machine, but you can actually just put it next to your machine and just feed it into the first, area that it starts taking thread, avoiding the spool pin and going straight into your machine.
Sure. And for all of us that have seen the thread delivery of putting a metallic on the spool pin on the machine, this is going to be a world of difference. I'm telling you guys right now, if you've ever tried to use metallic on that spool pin on your machine, this is entirely different. I mean, it's a nightmare otherwise. So you definitely need to work on the thread. What's the word I'm looking for? Like you said, the thread delivery on the metallic. All right. Anything else, Joe?
Nope. That covers.
Okay. All right. So we're gonna get back to the new ones, the new little ones that are in the
I'm very excited.
And so I'll back out here.
Okay, sounds good. So I'm super excited to talk about this now that I know a few of you are actually interested in like maybe trying out metallics or those sometimes more finickier threads, but they're super fun to use because nothing really imitates a metallic exactly or a rayon exactly because they just have their own look and luster and sheen to them. So this is the newest item that we have. Like I said, it's called the Ultimate Thread Dispenser. It fits a mini king cone size spool, so something that looks like this, it'll fit. And the idea here is that it will unwind your spool in a different way so it doesn't add any extra twist before it feeds into your machine. So I know conceptually that might sound like a little bit confusing, so I will definitely demonstrate for everyone to see here too. So there's two main parts of it. This part, it actually spins. And then as you can see here, there's two slots on either side, depending on where you just want to feed the thread through. And that's where actually your thread path will go. So I will grab that same metallic, just plop it on there, and I'll put it through one of these slots. So I hope everyone, oops. I hope everyone can kind of see that. And as you draw the thread off, you can see that it's spinning the spool. So instead of spinning your thread, it's spinning the spool. So in this way, it won't be, twisting up. That's what we're really trying to avoid when we're just using these types of thread. So in this way, it'll actually unwind your spool instead of pulling it from the top or twisting it into your machine. And I can demonstrate again as if you would just have your metallic on a horizontal spool pin, it'll just fall off like this. And this is when you're going to run into those tension issues that might occur with these types of threads. So I love this tool. And, I've heard some pretty crazy stories about the lengths people will go to just make sure that their thread is relaxed or smooth going into the machine. I remember we had one lady tell us she actually put a little hook on her ceiling so it would feed through the hook and straight down into her machine. And then once she tried using this, it actually resolved a lot of those issues, and she could just put it on the top of her machine, skip the spool pin area, and then you can just feed it as usual. So there's that. And people have actually also used it on their serger as well. So when you're using kind of decorative serging, so like I said, we have this thread. Oh, is there a question coming in?
Denise wanted to know what is that tool called, but I wanted to remind everybody because not everybody is watching on the Sew for Less website. So, guys, if you're on Facebook, if you're on YouTube or Twitter, even or Twitch, I mean, whatever, wherever you're watching from, all of the items that Stephanie is showing you guys are on the Sew for Less website. Yeah. And it's super easy to get there. Right now, all of the items that she's displaying right now are organized underneath the Talkin Stitches category for today. So if you like anything that she's showing you, which there's a lot to like, all you gotta do is head to sewforless.com. The link is actually on the top of every single page on the website. You just simply click on it, and all of the items are organized underneath the live feed. Stephanie, I got to tell you, ironically, the item you just showed is the one that attracted me to the company. I saw that and I thought, wow, that's really great. I want to get some of those. And then I bought a whole bunch of other stuff. But I think those things are super unique. I love the fact that it spins the spool. Now, let me ask you. So you said do you just set it on top of the machine?
So on the bottom of it, there's actually a little hole. So if you have a vertical spool pin, I would suggest just plopping it on top of your vertical spool pin there. And then that way it's like stabilized. But because it is spinning the spool, it shouldn't be pulling towards your machine when you're sewing with it.
So let me ask you, could you get even some double-sided tape and could you just literally affix it to the top of the machine?
Yeah, absolutely. I've also heard from people they used some command like Velcro stuff.
Sure.
So you can take it off, put your thread on, thread it through, then plop it back onto where that Velcro piece was. And that's also a really, I thought, creative method so that you can kind of take it on and off.
We're actually going to be bringing in some of that. I think they call it magic nano tape. Have you seen this? I think that this actually might work really well in this situation because it's a really strong hold, but it comes off really easily. So
that's nice.
Look for that coming up, guys, if you're interested in something like that. But I'm going to go ahead and back out here. It's so funny. Every time that I come back in, it's like I surprise you. I don't mean.
Oh, no, it's okay. It's because I put myself on a full screen, so then I'm not seeing like everything. But please interrupt if anyone has any questions. I will try my best to answer them. And yeah, don't hesitate to come in whenever you would like. So I just think I wanted to finish off by telling you that if you do get this product on the box, there's actually tons of helpful information to show you what you can use this for and how it can help you while you're sewing. And there's like the little diagram of how to assemble it. It's really just two parts. So it's this part that comes off separately and then this part here, and you just attach them together. And ta-da, you have your little ultimate thread dispenser. There it is. So I just have one last thread delivery product that I kind of want to show you guys. And all of these kind of work differently. They all came out at different times as well. And so this next one I'll show you will probably look the most different from the other ones you've seen. And it actually also serves a different purpose. And that is the Wonder Guard. So Sew For Less also has this on their website, and they sell in packs of 10. There are two sizes of it. So this is our regular size, which will fit on a spool that looks like this. And then there's also a smaller size, which will fit on a more skinny spool. And I want to show you this because it's actually a very nice thing to have when you're storing your thread. So this is what I probably primarily use it for, because I do a lot of hand stitching and handwork, and I love using rayon threads, but they're kind of a nightmare to store. They just like want to unravel and slip all over each other, and then the next time I open the box, it's just a giant knot. So how it works is it's kind of similar to, we call it a tape, but it's not sticky in any way. It sticks to itself like this. So if you imagine something like saran wrap, but kind of higher quality, I guess, then that's kind of how it works. So it won't add any sort of adhesive or anything extra onto your thread. You don't have to worry about that. And how I would just put it on is I would wrap it around just like this. And if you wrap it around pretty taut, then you can just toss this into your thread bin or wherever you're storing your thread, and you don't have to worry about it unwinding. And this is one of our rayon threads too, and that's why I chose it, because even if I just take the thread guard off, it just wants to come off. And if it's upside down, oh, you see that? It just all comes flying off. So this is why having a Wonder Guard is so helpful. It's often an overlooked side of sewing, the organization side, but then after, I know everyone watching is already pretty deep into this hobby. One day you look at your shelf and you're like, oh goodness, I'm going to have to figure out how to organize everything, right? So that would be the first use of Wonder Guard. And then the second one, which I was talking about, the thread delivery side, is if you actually wrap the Wonder Guard around the spool slightly looser so it creates a sleeve and it can actually still move up and down and side to side like this, you can actually put this on your machine and sew with it like this. So you're not getting like a loop every time you pull. It's actually going to regulate your tension so you're not having those skipped stitches or the problems we talked about earlier. And I'm not sure if anyone has ever experienced stitching with or sewing with a thread net before, but you'll actually notice sometimes the thread net might ride up. So in that scenario, then the Wonder Guard would be probably a better alternative, is what I would suggest. And then that way the thread is also not rubbing on the net as it's being fed into your machine. So that is kind of the last thread delivery product / organizational thing that I wanted to talk about on this side. And then I'm gonna, yes, hello.
I wanted to just comment. Oh, I guess am I muted? I'm good now. Okay. I wanted to comment a couple of things on what the thread wraps. The Wonder Guards.
Yes.
I think it's cool, the whole storage thing, but what really fascinated me the most was the ability to wrap it and then put that surface tension on there, which really, again, rayon is notorious. I know I just sat there and I watched you do that, but I know that it is notorious for just not only coming off like that, but then pooling at the bottom, as you mentioned.
Yes.
And that surface tension from those wraps. I mean, we sell thread nets, And I was kind of curious. I'm glad you went into that because I was
Mhm.
kind of curious how that performed comparatively. But I love the fact that you can sew with that on there because that additional surface tension is really going to improve the thread delivery. I mean, I can only imagine pairing a couple of things together. It's like the perfect thread delivery system. Oh, here we
Uh,
go. What do we got? I'm new to machine embroidery. I've yet to do a design without breaking the threads. Could this be to my horizontal thread dispenser? Yes, and I know a lot of times people will actually put the wrong size spool cap on there. That could be. It's a classic. I've done it myself multiple times, and that was before I figured out that there is actually a right and a wrong one. But horizontal delivery is it's really difficult. All of these, the ultimate thread dispenser really, I think, is going to solve a lot of people's problems, the way that it comes off like that. But that definitely could be an issue, Stephanie. Not this Stephanie, the other
No,
Stephanie.
yeah, the other Stephanie. Yeah, I definitely agree. That's why there's like these different products to help take the thread off the spool because for embroidery especially, it's so much fun to use threads that are beyond just like a 40 weight polyester, which and all of these are totally fine, but being able to try threads that are like rayon or metallic or, I'll talk a little bit about a holographic thread later too. We want to make these threads more like fun and usable and less intimidating as well. So when you're having an accessory like the ultimate thread dispenser, for example, that helps regulate almost like the perfect amount of thread that goes into your machine without like a loop coming off every time
Right,
it comes off. It'll really help with that like thread breakage issue, I believe. And another thing too is we always tell people to make sure you change your needles. I know that's also a thing that sometimes people may forget about, but having the right needle size for the thread weight is actually super important as well. And that
right.
also, I mean, there's so many factors, right? Like how thick is the sandwich that you're going through? What type of stabilizer? All those things play a factor when you're doing your embroidery or your quilting and things like that.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll convince some of our viewers to go get some of those problem threads out of the drawer because I guarantee you that once you've experienced thread breakage a couple of times, like Stephanie was, I mean, I would put that thread away. So hopefully, you just go get it, get some of these new items, and it'll be a whole different experience. So keep it up. You're doing a great job, by the way. Really
Thank
appreciate it.
you. Thank you. I'm having a great time too.
Good.
So I wanted to mention actually yesterday I was also having another thread talk and we were talking about intimidating threads and of course rayon and metallic came into the mix as well. These are really popular embroidery threads and we just wanted to like dispel some of those myths. It's actually sometimes a really easy solution to make the thread that you bought usable and over time you're buying these different types of threads. It can, really add up, especially if you are investing in rayon threads or metallics, which can sometimes be a little bit more expensive than like your standard polyester. So I hope those three items kind of um, inspire you guys to maybe dig back into your basket and see what you want to try again. I think that you'll be quite happy with the result. So the next little portion I'm going to talk about is going to be just really quick. So at So For Less, they carry a really fun item. This is called our Thread Butler, and this is just a really nice, simple tool for you to take around while you're doing your stitching or your sewing, and you don't have to take like 5 or 6 spools with you and carry it in your luggage all the time. So I absolutely love using this, especially like I said earlier, I love hand embroidery. I do a lot of hand stitching, and sometimes just like carrying all that stuff with me is not that fun. So I'll just choose a few of the colors that I'm using on the regular. I'll grab a few arm lengths, I think around four or five, and then I'll fold them in half a few times and I'll attach it to this. And then on the back, there's actually spots where you can put the color numbers down. So you don't have to worry about like reading each label about which thread color is for which spot on your embroidery design. And you can actually buy multiple and put the project name there too so you don't forget. And I just wanted to pull a really quick example. Um, before COVID, we were on the road a lot actually. And so now that we're starting back up again and I've been traveling a little bit more, this has been super handy to have. And I'll make things like this. This is just like a little pin cushion that I made, and I'll bring this little thing with me plus a needle. And then that way I don't have to bring around like 12 balls of pearl cotton, which is super, super fun. So yeah, this is definitely also a very handy tool to have around, especially if you are someone that loves to work on kits and things like that.
So I love the little thread butler, and it's the first thing that popped into my mind was everything that you said as far as like not having to bring the individual spools. But I'm thinking I'm going to the fabric store. Here's the threads that I'm using in my project, and this way I can know 100% that what I choose is going to match what I'm working with. And so that was my whole thought. I mean, it's such an inexpensive thing. I think you guys sell them in 5 packs. We broke them down. So this way, I mean, you could buy 2, 4, however many. They're just $1 each. So it's really thick. It's not, I know sometimes when you get sample boards, they're really thin. This is a very substantial board.
Yeah.
It's going to hold up for a while. And again, it's just one of those things where, like Stephanie was saying, grab a couple arm lengths, however, and then fold them over a couple of times. You'll be surprised. You won't need much. All you need to do is just make sure that it's matching. Or, you could do what she was doing. By the way, hold up that pin cushion again. That was, yeah. Okay. Sorry. That thing is awesome. Wow. That is, how long did that, I know that we're not talking about pin cushions, but man, that thing is cool. How long did it take you to make that?
Probably like a month on and
Yeah.
off. Like I know I have projects that really take me a super long time, and then some that I just like bang out because I'm super excited to do it. And this just was one of them. So it actually comes with, I don't have it here, but it actually comes with like a little cactus stand that sticks right in the middle. It's very
Oh
cute,
my
but it's
gosh.
all like hand embroidery. And I love the idea that you actually came up with. I didn't think about it myself, is like attaching thread or fabric to match thread or fabric, because when we go to shows all the time, people are like, oh, like where's my swatch of this, I
Right.
need to match my fabric to this, especially if you're using like maybe a slightly like heavier thread, maybe even like a 50 weight or anything heavier, and the thread will show up. It's a really great way to just like stick a piece of fabric on there and then try to match it to
Right.
the thread that
We
you want.
we have a lot of quilters, and I know that there's a lot of planning that goes into that. So I could definitely see where there'd be crossover there. You got your fabric and whatever the predominant colors that you are using in your quilt. I could see where that would really come in handy. We got a question there, Joe. Yeah, we sure do. Does Wonderfil have a chart of what needle to use with what thread? That's a great question. I don't
Yeah,
know.
so actually, like, I was definitely going to talk about this in a little bit, but I'm glad that you brought it up because I will talk about those threads later. But for all the thread lines that we have, and we have the different uses of the thread, and we also have a needle chart for every thread line, including like a domestic machine, what type of needle, a long arm machine, or if you're doing handwork with it, we'll actually also list those types of needles under the thread.
So we're really excited to be partnering with Wonderfil. Just for everybody that's watching right now, this is just a small snippet of what's to come. So it's a little overwhelming as a dealer, because how many different thread lines do you have, Stephanie?
36.
Oh my God. Yeah. So you'll have to give us a little time to work it in. But that was one of the reasons why we wanted to bring in the Aurora and the hologram just really caught my eye. So we wanted to start with that. And I think we're about ready to get into that, aren't we?
Yep, we sure are.
Give
That's
it
where
a
I'm
minute.
just gonna dive into next. So I was also going to mention for the needle sizes and stuff. I noticed on the Sew for Less website, under each product, they actually have the same information about the thread. So if you're curious about those needle sizes, all that information is there too. And they actually also have YouTube videos of the different uses and applications, so you can also see the thread in action, I guess you can say. So they put a lot of our educational resources on their own website too. So yeah, I find it incredibly helpful to always like see what I'm buying, see it in use. And so please go check it out if you're interested in any of these next thread lines, and you can learn a little bit more about it there too. So the next thing I'm going to dive into is the Bobbinator. So as we bleed into this next thread section, this is kind of a happy marriage between an accessory and some thread. And how it'll actually look in the packaging is like this. And you'll notice that one's pink and one's blue. And this is just simply because of different bobbin sizes. This one is an L size bobbin. So as you can see, they're actually shorter. And then this is a class 15, and the bobbins are actually a bit taller. So most domestic machines will either take an L or a 15. There are a few machines that have their own unique bobbin size that is not as available on the market if you're buying pre-wound bobbins, for example. So, as to preface, all our bobbins are actually wound with a 80 weight thread called Deco Bob. Deco Bob is one of our best-selling threads, and it's really what we encourage people to try using in their bobbin because it is such a lightweight thread that if you're doing your piecing with it, or even if you're doing embroidery with it as well, it won't add too much heaviness to the back of your work, which is why even on the Bobbinator, we have 80 weight wound on it. So now comes the big question, what does the Bobbinator even do? Why is it even called a Bobbinator? And the reason being, it actually turns your bobbins into a spool of thread that you can actually use on the top part of your machine. And it's split into two compartments. The bottom one here is a little bit of thread storage. So if you're buying the L size or the 15, it will store 3 bobbins at max. So all you have to do is you twist the cap, it pops off, and then you have your bobbins here like this. And then I'll just pop those guys back in. And you're probably wondering about this top little section here that's separated by this plastic. So I'll just also take that off. It's a twist. Here, I'm not sure if you guys can see that. You actually twist it and pop it off. And that's the same way as how you put it back on. You twist it and it'll actually lock back in. This is where you put your bobbin that you want to use in the top. So all you have to do is unwind a little bit of the bobbin, put it here, and there's a little slot. Hold on. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to figure out where the camera is. There's a little slot just right here. And all you have to do is put the thread through the slot, like so. And then put the lid back on. And then you can just put it on your machine and use the thread for your top sewing so your bobbins don't go to waste. It's a really fun idea. And actually, one thing that this product has kind of broken into the market of too is people that like to do English paper piecing. They'll actually just bring this around with them while they're doing their EPP on the go and take a little bit of thread, cut it off, do a little bit of stitching, and they'll grab more. And then at the same time, you can store different colors for your project too. So this is what the Bobbinator is. And that's also why we sell it in 2 different sizes. So if you choose to use it in your machine, you of course can also use the other Deco Bob you see here in your machine. So in total, there's 10 bobbins in here, and there's over 100 yards on each bobbin. So it's definitely a really great buy. We love the Bobbinator. On the back here, you can kind of see what I was trying to explain. There's a slit right there, and that's where that thread comes through. And then this area here is the compartment to store your thread that you're bringing around. So yeah, this is a really little awesome tool.
So I think I feel like I have more questions than anybody else, but that's all right. I figured I got you. I'm gonna make sure I get them answered here. So I did read that it had 80 weight. Now I know a lot of our domestic machines are preset from the factory for a 60 weight. So how does that 80 weight compare with the 60 weight? Is there any adjustments that we should be looking to make, or does the 80 weight just goes?
The 80 weight will actually just go in the machine. There shouldn't be any tension issues when you're changing from a 60 to an 80. 60 and 80 are actually pretty similar in terms of like thickness. You'll probably notice the biggest jump if you're like using a 50 weight in the bobbin, but 60 and 80 is both what we would consider those finer threads. And
Right.
so the machine will still be able to sense it. We've never had problems with that. The only thing that I would say is we carry a 100 weight thread. And when we've used it in the machine, there's just been a few of the new ones that will have some sensing issues, just because they're so advanced now and the thread is really fine. But with the 80 weight, we have not had that issue. It's just maybe if you go all the way up to like 100 weight. And just for reference, if people don't know, the higher the number, the finer the thread, then the lower the number, the thicker the thread.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. It's such an odd inverse
Yeah.
relationship. It's tough to kind of wrap your head around. I've been doing this 22 years and I still have to catch myself because I'm like, all right, 80, 60, 80 is thinner.
Thinner.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So no, I'm glad that you brought that up. That is really a unique item. And number one, I just love the name. I love anything that ends in "ater" because it always reminds me of Phineas and Ferb. I don't know if you've ever seen that show. It's a kid's
I
show.
love it.
It's a kid's show. I mean, but the fact that you called it the Bobbinator, was that your idea?
Well, the funny thing is, so we're also like a family-run company, and the marketing team was pitching ideas for names of this product. And then, as a joke, my sister's like, "Let's call it the Bobbinator." And my dad, who was the founder of Wonderfil, he was like, "I love it. Let's call it the Bobbinator." And
Why not?
we're like,
Fun
"Really?"
names are awesome. I love it. So the Bobbinator. All right, guys. So if you
Yeah.
do
So
English paper piecing, or again, one of those things, you've got oddball bobbins sitting in the sewing drawer. I mean, now take them out. You can easily use them with the Bobbinator. What a neat thing. And I think, Joe, correct me if I'm wrong. I think we have free shipping on the
I believe
Bobbinators.
so, yeah.
Yeah, so right now we've got free shipping on the Bobbinator. Actually, we've got free shipping on the Ultimate Thread Dispenser and the Thread Tamer too. Yeah, so a lot of good deals right now, but that Bobbinator, if you don't buy it just for the name, buy it because you can put some of those spare oddball bobbins to use that maybe you wound 10 years ago. Now you could actually use them.
yeah, that's
All right.
absolutely
I just
right.
wanted to get that in there because I love the name. So
Yeah, and then thus the Bobbinator was born. That's how it kind of came about. So I will kind of go into the next few items here. So now I'm going to kind of talk more about the thread portion. I know we covered a few different accessories ahead of time, but now I want to talk about these really special threads coming up. And the first one I want to touch on is Aurora. Now, this is our glow in the dark thread. I just have one color here, but it actually comes in 8 colors, and they all glow a little bit differently as well. And this is a 40 weight. I think we called it like a vinyl polyester, just simply because of how it's made. And so this will just work kind of like your standard embroidery 40 weight thread. Um, I have some photos I wanted to show you as well. Let me just look here. And I just wanted to say too, a lot of people also use it for decorative stitching or some like dense quilting too. So let me pull that up right now for you to see. Is this, hold on. Share. Is this work? Okay, there we go. Thank you. So in this first example here is kind of a freestanding embroidery project. I think it's OESD. And it's basically just different parts of a skeleton that we just added little tacks on so the joints would be all wobbly. Are you coming out with more sizes in the Bobbinator? So unfortunately, we just only have the 15 and the L size out right now because those are kind of the more standard sizes of bobbins that we carry. So the L and the 15 are actually the exact same diameter, so that's why it fits into the same tube. So if you have different machines, you can definitely also just use different bobbins in the same accessory here. But for something like an M bobbin or those unique bobbins that might be bigger than an L or a 15, then it won't fit. If you have a unique size bobbin and it is smaller than the standard L or 15, I believe maybe it it could fit in here, and you can potentially also use it for the same purposes. I There might just be a little bit more jiggling inside if it is a bit smaller, but I think if it is smaller, you'll be able to just use it all the same. Okay, so just diving back into here. So this is embroidery with the glow in the dark. And if I just go to the next slide here, this is what it looks like while it's glowing. And I'll just preface this as well as glow in the dark products in general are made with something called phosphorus. And for it to glow, it actually absorbs light and then it'll glow brighter. So even with glow in the dark thread, the more light is that it's exposed to, the brighter it'll be when it's in the dark. And this can be especially vibrant if you're like shining like a ultraviolet light on your project and then bringing it into the darkness. So this was like a really fun project that I wanted to show you. And then this was also embroidery, kind of with two different threads. So the red thread is one we have called flash, and that's a reflective thread. But all this more light colored shading and all the windows that you see, that's also Aurora. So when we bring it into the dark, you can see all the windows and doors lit up, and it creates this really neat effect. Then this is something one of my coworkers made on their embroidery machine. I think it's hilarious. I really love this thing. I wanted to hang it in my office. And so I'm a huge fan of space, both outer and personal. And isn't that true? So again, this is a really good example to show you how the different colors of Aurora show up in the darkness. So as you can see, some of them glow green and then some of them glow blue, some of them glow orange. So also on like the So For Less website, they have the comparison of how the spool looks individually and then also how it looks like when it's glowing in the dark, which is really awesome.
Well, I'm glad that you showed this because one of the things that I find most impressive, and we've sold a lot of different glow in the dark threads over the years, almost all of them, no matter the color that you see in the daytime, almost all of them glowed green.
Mhm.
This is the first time that I've seen glow in the dark thread that actually glowed close to the daytime color. And it's spectacular. I mean, guys, look at the way most of the time you would not be able to get the differentiation in the color there. And you can see that that orange is actually glowing in the dark. I mean, that is really unique. I've never actually seen glow in the dark thread before that glowed orange. So I love glow in the dark stuff. I love space. And I think I want to make that. I'm going to be honest. I think there's a couple of people in the comments, but I think that that's really cool. I wanted to point that out, guys. You're actually seeing that orange is actually glowing in the dark. So
Mhm.
that's really cool.
So this is without it glowing. You can kind of focus on the areas that are orange, and there's a little bit of blue and pink. And then when we turn it over, some of those colors will maintain like how you said. So yeah, I love glow in the dark threads too. I think they're so much fun. And then on this next slide, I know I showed a few embroidery examples. This is actually free motion quilting with Aurora. And unfortunately, I couldn't find the photo of how it looked like without it glowing, but essentially it was like an art quilt, and she densely quilted all the negative space in between her owl and her flowers with Aurora. So at night, the owl like really popped out, and it's so unique, right? Like this nocturnal animal showing up at in the darkness. And so you can really add these cool effects to your quilt or to your embroidery, and you're definitely not limited to one or the other. And I'll say as well, for all our embroidery here, we are using the 80 weight deco bob, so that is also an option. I would also suggest using like the 60 weight, like how you mentioned earlier, because just the finer threads in the bobbin will perform much nicer when you're making these projects. So
So
I
with the free motion quilting like that, if I could just kind of jump in here real quick,
Mhm.
what would be a good would you use a top stitch needle for something like that, would you think? Or
Yes. So I think here we are using a top stitch needle, maybe like a 9014. That
Right.
might sound a little bit larger, but if you are moving in all these directions and it is a 40 weight thread, which is not necessarily what we consider a fine thread, I would go up to a size like 9014. And
I'm really glad that you showed this.
Mhm.
I've never actually. It's funny. I don't know why. We do quilting classes literally every Tuesday. Guys, let me just plug it real quick. If you like any kind of quilting, we do ruler work classes every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. Guys, this would be awesome on a quilt. I mean, I just can't imagine. I can't believe I never thought about this. Can you imagine putting this on a child's quilt? I mean, how awesome would this be? Especially if, like one of my kids is kind of afraid of the dark. How cool
Mhm.
would this be? I mean, to put it on the quilt for them. Anyway, so kudos to whomever came up with that idea. That was
Yes.
spectacular.
Yeah, absolutely. I now wish I put another photo on here because we made a baby blanket, with, and we made a baby blanket and then quilted it with Aurora as well. So 100%, like, these are great ideas, and, I think that'd be so much fun for kids, glow in the dark PJs, glow in the dark bed sheets. I love it. Mhm. So
Everything glow in the dark. Absolutely.
everything glow in the dark. You're not even sleeping in the dark at that point because everything's just glowing around you. But, as a kid, you love that kind of stuff, so I I definitely recommend it. So, the next thread that I wanted to talk about. Oh, how do I thank you so much. So, I think everyone can see me now. The next thread that I'm gonna touch on is also equally as unique. It is called Hologram, and I'll just hold it really close to the camera here. And I'm guessing you guys can probably figure out why it's called hologram. And it's because it is a holographic thread. It is pretty much equivalent to around a 40 weight thread as well. So very common among like decorative stitching, sometimes quilting and embroidery. What hologram is made out of is actually a slitted polyester. So what does that actually mean? A slitted polyester is if you imagine a giant sheet of polyester that we've cut into really thin strips to be able to have this effect. So it's not technically made out of like a fiber that might be like a cotton or a rayon or something like this. This is what we call slitted polyester, and it does feel a little bit more flat compared to like a thread that might feel a little bit more round. But again, I have to show you some pictures of this in action because this is just like such a beautiful thread, and it's not something that could have been accomplished if it was not um, manufactured like this. The next closest thing might be a metallic, and I have a spool of it right here, and just holding them side by side, you can see that they're just two totally different threads, and the sparkliness or the glitteriness of a hologram can't be replicated in the form of like a metallic, for example. So I'm just going to screen share again. Thank you for your help. Um, I'm just going to hop to this next slide. So this is actually the exact same color I was just holding. However, you can kind of see where the light hits it on the roundest part, where it's reflecting blues and pinks and oranges and yellows. And then on the right here, this is actually just like an open embroidery design. And it's so difficult to capture what hologram looks like in a picture when it's quilted out, but it's very glistening and it catches light from all the sparkles that it has. And if I show you just this next picture here, this is also hologram, but in a gold color. So hologram is also available in 8 colors. And on this picture on the left here, you can actually see that someone made a card out of it. So they did handwork with it, and some beading. So what they did was they actually punched some holes in the cards and then fed the thread through to make a really cool effect. So again, never feel limited to just one use for your thread. You can always do many things with it to achieve the look that you want at the end. So I would just say if you're curious about it, go ahead and try it. For a lot of these projects, sometimes we don't even know that that was possible until like a designer or just like someone brings their project to us and shows us what they've made, and this is one of those cases. So do you use the same thread in the bobbin? No, so we actually also use deco bob in the bobbin, so at this point it's not really, I guess, much of a surprise anymore. But if you're using either hologram or what I was saying before with Aurora, we use 80 weight deco bob in the bobbin all the time. The 60 weight or just a lighter weight in general will work just as fine. I would just recommend against going thicker, any thicker than the 60 weight.
So let me ask you, do you find that using something like the Ultimate Thread Dispenser or the Thread Tamer, even with the Aurora or the Hologram, offers a better thread delivery? Would you say that that would be factual?
Yeah, so for especially hologram, like I said, because it is a slitted polyester, it is kind of like a flat thread. We kind of want to avoid it from twisting on itself too much. So the best way to use this is to have it draw so it's not spinning as it's coming off the thread. So in the form of a vertical spool pin or the ultimate thread dispenser, or I'm not sure if you guys remember, but on the thread tamer, there is also, oh yes, let me just show you here. So on the thread tamer, there is this accessory. So I actually just like pulled it off to show you this thread, but it goes through a cop size like this, which is the exact same size as the hologram. And that actually just slides into this here. Sorry, I'm trying to look at it from two different angles here, but it just actually slides in there. There we go. And then you can actually just draw it. So when you're drawing it off the spool, I'm just going to use a bigger one so it's easier to see. So if you imagine that's the cop and you're just drawing it like this, it's not spinning on itself as it's going into your machine. In the same way that if you're using the ultimate thread dispenser and you're pulling it off like this, the thread is not spinning and twisting before it goes into your machine. However, if you're putting it on the horizontal spool pin like this and you're pulling it like this, it actually adds a twist to the thread every time it goes into the machine. And so for something like a cotton, that doesn't really matter as much. Cotton's a very user-friendly thread, but for threads like hologram, it would be beneficial to be having it sitting like this and drawing like that or like this. So I hope that answers your question.
I think that was a great explanation.
So that was the photos that I had for hologram. And like I said, I know these threads can sometimes feel a little bit intimidating, but I highly encourage you guys to try it. I don't think there's things that can quite replicate the same look. And I think it's a very achievable for you guys to make these threads usable, and that so they're not just like sitting in your shelves or whatever. You just sometimes need a tool, and that will, you know, open up the possibilities a lot more. And there's tons of hints and support material from our side on our site and on Wonderfil. And I know on the Sew for Less website, they also have a lot of tools under each product that will go into more information, because I know just by being here, we're very about being threaducated. And I think the same goes for you.
Well, I got to tell you, first of all, kudos to you guys. You do an amazing job producing those materials to educate people. Not everybody does the YouTube videos, but even the ones that do, not all of them are to the quality that you guys offer. I've watched everything that we put on the website. I watched it myself, and I was impressed. I mean, it's very educational, or threaducational, as you said. I love that. I love puns. I love clever marketing materials. That is awesome. So congratulations for that. Again, your marketing team, Bobbinator, Threaducator. I mean, come on. How can you get any better? But, it was a perfect tie-in. The Thread Tamer, the Ultimate Thread Dispenser, the Wonder Guards, to go with these specialty threads, because they really can work hand in hand. And again, anybody that's tried to work with specialty threads in the past knows that if you don't have the right tools, it can be a nightmare. And so I wanted to bring them together, and I think it just worked out perfectly. Stephanie, you did a great job. I hope to do this again. I wanted to appeal to everybody. Make sure you like and subscribe and hit that notification bell to make sure that you guys get notified when we do stuff like this. I'm hoping to do this again with Stephanie. Not only was she super fun, but wow, so educational. So somebody trained you right. So you did a great job. Or maybe it was just you learning. I don't know. But it shows. You can tell when you're passionate about something, and I think you've got that down pat.
Thank you so much. It's been a really great pleasure, like, presenting. I really enjoy, talking to quilters, embroiderers, and sewers alike. Like, I feel really blessed to be in an industry where it's a hobby. People are having a good time. They want to, maybe not think about the stresses of the world, and
Right.
work on something that makes them happy. And if we can play a role in helping people out and exploring different creative avenues, I think that's just very awesome.
It is. It's great. It is very fun when you can help someone enjoy their hobby. I know some of us have businesses, especially with embroiderers, they run monogram and personalization businesses. But, when it's fun, I mean, it's great to learn new things, and it's great to learn new things that make it easier and faster and more enjoyable. So, again, when I first saw, like I said, the first thing that I saw was the thread dispenser, the ultimate thread dispenser. And I'm so glad I dove a little bit deeper. Of course, Samantha was awesome, very instrumental in highlighting all of these products. So, Samantha, if you're watching, I want to say thank you to you and to all of our viewers today, guys. I know there's a lot of things that you could be doing on a Friday afternoon. And I appreciate the fact that you carved out some time to spend it with us. Of course, if you did miss part of it, you can always go back and rewatch it. We do keep all of the replays on the sewforless.com website. They're just categorized under date, super easy to find. And it's right under the live shows. I think is right. The live shows on the left-hand side, super easy to find. So guys, with that, I want everybody to enjoy your holiday weekend. And Stephanie, again, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
We'll see you guys all next time, Fridays at 2 p.m. Talkin Stitches. Have a great weekend, guys. Bye-bye now.
Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.